So, welcome back to the Web3 Insights, the podcast that brings you straight to the builders building the future of decentralization. Today, we're joined by Sheldon Hunt, co-founder of Sundial Protocol, and Rob Gaskell, who is the co-founder and partner at Uphold, who together are working on something truly disruptive for Bitcoin's future. Sundial Protocol is pioneering a modular Bitcoin layer 2 with the goal of unlocking composability and native interoperability across ecosystems. In this episode, we're going to dive into what's happening right now behind the scenes and how they're building cross-chain future and why this project is attracting increasing attention. So let's get into it. Guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks.
Great to be here, Aaron. Great to see you again.
Great to be here.
Yeah, Sheldon, I know obviously we've spoken before. You came on the podcast a while ago whilst you were at Emergo, but let's kick things off with Sundial. How did it come about? What inspired its creation? And what's the core problem that you're aiming to solve in this next chapter?
Yes, yeah. Well, so a lot has changed since we last spoke. But yeah, as I was mentioning, it's great to be here. I guess it was a little more than about 6 months ago at this point when we last spoke about it. So
Yeah,
a lot of updates. But yeah, so for everybody new kind of tuning in and haven't really heard of Sundial before, or kind of curious about where it came from, yeah, happy to kind of go into a few more details there. So really, Sundial, which, as you were saying, is a layer 2 for Bitcoin, but quite innovative in that it's a UTXO superchain approach to things. It's coming from both my realization that there's an opportunity here to service Bitcoin in a way that hasn't been done historically, as well as frustrations, looking around and just dealing with a number of partners and people who would like to come off the sidelines and engage with Bitcoin, but have thus far been a bit frustrated at being unable to do so, be it from regulation or be it like an understanding of how to interact with Bitcoin. For the longest time, we've just assumed that capital appreciation of Bitcoin would be attractive enough and that it'll just get people to come off the sidelines and engage with it. But the reality is that there are a lot of financial institutions and others out there who do need to have a bit more security in place. They need to have some assurances as well as like regular yield strategies. They've got a thesis that demands that on a quarterly basis that they've got an understanding of how the particular asset has been performing. Bitcoin is, I guess, more akin to gold in that it's got like this value, but it doesn't have any yield to it. There's nothing that it can kind of interact with on an institutional basis that many can engage with. So by bringing Sundial to a bit more like an institutionally focused group with design features that are unique to that clientele, we're offering a new suite of services to Bitcoin that have historically been unavailable. And that's really just kind of like a start. There's still so much more we're aiming to do here. We're standing on the shoulders of giants here using the EUTXO model, and so we've had it for years now, and it's battle tested. And so it's great that we're able to essentially extend what has been possible with Bitcoin by using what has worked so well on the Cardano side. And that's also where I kind of come from, as you know, right? Being previously the head of the Cardano ecosystem with Emergo. So I saw what was working and some of the frustrations around what could have been working better with Cardano. And with Sundial, we now have an opportunity to kind of approach things in a more ambitious way and look to take the best of Cardano and bring it forward to serve the best interests of Bitcoin. So for me, it's a really exciting time to be working here in this space. And yeah, the opportunities are abundant, but we've got a laser focus on going out and bringing institutional support for those who want to come to Bitcoin in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely is exciting for sure as well. Rob, great to have you on also. For those who may not know you yet, could you give us a quick intro into your background and what you're building at Uphold?
Sure, yeah. Hi, Aaron. It's nice to be on this podcast, and thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure.
The reason I'm here, obviously, is because I'm very excited about what Sundial is building and how Uphold, my company, is getting involved. My background is I've been in technology and operation positions in the hedge fund industry, and then I moved into the family office industry. And then after the family office industry in 2016, I moved into blockchain full time. I've been building solutions on protocols like Ethereum and other protocols out there, supporting Bitcoin ecosystem in different ways, as well as the DeFi ecosystem. I would say, and the way that went very well in the few years after the ICO craze. We've gone through all these crazes, haven't we, in the ecosystem,
Yeah.
but in the blockchain ecosystem. But fundamentally, I'm a technology type guy, so I like the technology, the purist side of the technology. That's what interests me the most. The fundamentals of blockchain, I think, are still extremely valid, and that's been borne out by what we're seeing now with the institutional adoption. But with that, I started a company in 2020. So part of my journey from 2016 to 2020, and then 2020 onwards, called Appold, with my business partner Pete Osborne. And we could see that there was a big gap between institutions, traditional businesses, and this technology, and we wanted to try and bridge that gap. This whole area of Web3 blockchain technology needs that sort of language translation. It needs also tools and other types of support for institutions to use the technology. And this is something that we could see that there was a significant gap that we could fill. Through that time, Appold has built an advisory business where we advise these institutions and also blockchain protocols. We've now been fortunate enough to work with most of the major tier one blockchains protocols themselves in supporting them in their growth, and also supporting how they support institutional adoption. And then we've also worked with companies in the space, so individual blockchain companies or solutions in the space, as well as institutions themselves. So with my background mostly being working around financial services, and Pete's background in the investment banking and stock exchange areas, we've certainly focused a lot more on the financial services side of adoption. So the large asset managers, the banks, stock exchanges, others have been mostly our clients, I would say. And but that's given us a real insight into what they think about and what is important to them. And again, we often find that companies in the space don't understand that. The technology companies don't understand exactly what the institutions need, and therefore that's why we've seen this not great support, but it's slowly coming. And that's how we got really interested in Sundial.
Yeah, amazing. It's a really good approach. Let's dive into Sundial then, Rob. What was it that drew Uphold into this project? What makes this partnership, a natural fit, and how do you see it evolving as Sundial grows?
Yeah, so we're happy to announce this partnership with Sundial. This is really the first time we've done a significant partnership like this, but we see this as such a fundamental project. Sundial being this layer, as Sheldon was saying, that sits above Bitcoin and other UTXOs in the ecosystem, and then potentially then branches out into the Ethereum world and other chains that are out there, substrate-based chains and others that we think that I've worked with in the past. I think is such a fundamental thing for the space, and bringing that programmatic layer on top of Bitcoin is fundamentally what is needed, I think, for Bitcoin. Having spent so much time in this space, understanding the needs of individuals as well as corporations, I just see this as a significant thing for Apple to get involved with. So we spent quite a bit of time analyzing the market and seeing if this was the right thing to do for Apple, and we said that it was, to get behind it and get and use our resources and our knowledge to ensure that Sundial is built from the ground up, so that it's 100% applicable to institutions as well as the ecosystem that we know very well.
Absolutely. So it'd be exciting, and I'm excited for sure to see how the partnership blossoms. Sheldon, Sundial is described as a modular blockchain sorry, I'll start that again. A modular Bitcoin layer 2. Could you just break down what that means and how it compares to some of the other layer 2 solutions that we're seeing in the Bitcoin ecosystem as well?
Yes, yeah, of course. Well, so for you and all of the listeners tuning in, I think you're probably aware that for the longest time, Bitcoin has been described as a form of digital gold. It's an asset that doesn't really do much besides being a store of value. But we now know through all of the wonderful innovations that have been made on the Ethereum side and Cardano and Solana and elsewhere that there's so much more you can be doing with digital assets. And of course, Bitcoin, I think, stands apart. It is quite special. But that being said, when you talk to institutions, when you go there into the world and you talk to them about what the promise of blockchain means to them, they all are quite excited. And if you give them the choice where they would want to build, Bitcoin is where they would want to tie into. However, the technology has just not existed thus far. There are a lot of attempts to make Bitcoin a bit more optimized to scale with different businesses, to be able to do different things. But it wasn't really designed to do that. So a lot of the work that's been done thus far is actually attempts to kind of hack Bitcoin and to make these different plays that in some ways make the best use of the really small block sizes that exist with Bitcoin. And so kudos to those teams that have been building out there. I think the Lightning Network, they've done some amazing stuff. There's no smart contracts there, but you can do incredible things with transactions. And then kind of going on from that, you've got amazing attempts at making Bitcoin more useful, but coming from another perspective, which is making the most of, say, EVM, the Ethereum world. I think of Starknet, Build on Bitcoin, CoreDAO. And so a lot of these guys are looking to wrap Bitcoin and try to bring it over to Ethereum and put it to work in DeFi over there. It's a great procedure. It works. Is it ideal and perfect? I would dare say no, but it's still a very noble kind of challenge to go for. And where that places us and why we think we are separate here and different, and why we refer to the modular side of things, is that we appreciate Bitcoin for being Bitcoin. So we're not looking to, in some words, pollute it or try to push in new things into Bitcoin. A lot of these other attempts to scale Bitcoin require some changes to how Bitcoin actually works, be it with a soft fork at a minimum. But we see that there's a lot of pushback, be it with OP return, but more kind of pronounced with OPCAT or OPCAT. Some of these changes that would kind of increase what Bitcoin can do, but there are many in the community who are not interested in seeing this happen because it makes a fundamental shift to what Bitcoin is. And so we appreciate that. We're not looking to change Bitcoin, but instead build around it and do as much as we can, appreciating the UTXO model. So that's where Sundial comes in a fairly unique way, that we are UTXO, appreciating UTXO. And so we've now demoed twice, and we'll actually be demoing a third instance, some engagement between Bitcoin and then Sundial. Sundial also, in this case, using a lot of the tech stack of Cardano. So it's been a very interesting thing, working with Bitcoin OS, using the Charms token standard. Also done stuff with Cardinal over at IOG, where they're demoing stuff within the Lace wallet. And we'll have some more coming down the pipeline, some more very interesting approaches. But the modular side of this is related to the fact that we have various bridging solutions that exist between Bitcoin and Sundial, as well as the ability to actually have, as Rob had mentioned before, and as I had mentioned, the idea that this Sundial is essentially like a super UTXO layer. We'll plug into Dogecoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, all of the other UTXO chains that have thus far, like Bitcoin, been excellent stores of value, but there hasn't been any utility there. There hasn't been any DeFi. You've got to wrap it up and throw it onto another chain to potentially do something, but there's a lot of risks involved in a lot of that. And so through Sundial, we are looking to eliminate as much as possible, and in some cases completely eliminate a lot of these risk vectors and these attack vectors, and to have it a truly authentic UTXO secure channel throughout to power DeFi in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great to watch, because obviously Sundial's been making some serious waves lately. You know, as you mentioned there, from demoing the first bridgeless Bitcoin to Cardano transfer, you know, to partnerships with BitLayer, Delta DeFi, and Uphold as well. You know, can you walk us through some of these recent developments and what they mean for the protocol's evolution?
Yes, absolutely. So we've been really privileged to be able to have a receptive audience and encouraging community that really rallies behind what we're doing here with Sundial. It's something that takes very little explaining, and then people immediately have a bit of a light bulb moment, being like, yes, this is important, this is valuable. And so, as you were listing off, we've had some great partnerships that have come together around the bridging side of things. So, talking about before, like BitLayer, Bitcoin OS, and many more, like Tap Protocol, working with all of these guys around further integrations and interoperability between, on the one hand, Bitcoin, but then also extending it to other ecosystems, because they're all looking to bridge Bitcoin, but to make the most of it over on the Sundial side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Sundial, we've now got a priority around making it more useful and to give it a bit of an ecosystem play. So talking with various wallets, then institutions as well. There are different dApp developers. Obviously, everybody who's been involved in DeFi over these last few years, they've got something to contribute here to what we're doing with Sundial. And so I think we've got, as of today, something like 30 plus partnerships together, and I think we'll have quite a lot more be publicly out there in the coming weeks and months ahead. So we've gotten some great momentum. I've been very privileged to have been able to get in to meet with and talk about Sundial with some of the biggest Bitcoin minds. So we've spoken with Michael Saylor and talked that back, and getting out there and working with these guys to showcase what can be done on the Bitcoin side of things to increase the utility and the adoption of Bitcoin. So ultimately, we're in the same boat here, and kind of all rowing in the same direction, and it's been great to work with all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've certainly been busy, that's for sure. And I've seen obviously your ex posts as well at all the Bitcoin events that you've been attending as well. So I'm sure they've been super helpful in terms of a lot of these introductions and stuff as well. Rob, as someone who's been helping shape strategy alongside Sheldon, how significant is this momentum for investor confidence and institutional interest in what Sundial is building?
Absolutely critical. I mean, this is what we've designed and we've advised Sheldon to do because we know that a project like this needs a lot of education. You know, it's not just again build a load of tech and then institutions will come. We've got to handhold a lot of the institutional side. But when we talk, we're speaking their language, though. We know what language they want to hear. And when we talk to institutions about yield on Bitcoin and the ability to effectively earn interest on your Bitcoin, that changes the dynamic of the asset class. The asset class at the moment is very difficult for institutions to understand.
Yeah.
If you look at Bitcoin itself as an asset, as an institution might look at it, they would say, okay, Bitcoin has capital appreciation. It's, as Sheldon said, some sort of like digital gold play, but we can't understand the energy component to it and other types of components are very difficult for us to understand. The fundamentals of why the price changes against dollar. Why does Bitcoin have this weird, a relationship with the dollar? They don't quite understand it. I would say it's very difficult for them to categorize. But when we talk about the extensibility of Bitcoin into interest or yield or using decentralized finance around Bitcoin, that pricks up their ears. Starts to get them a bit excited, and they start to then shape it into maybe an asset class that they could be involved with. And that's fundamentally why we're getting involved with this is because we see the institutions getting excited about it. We see and we've spoken to many, so we know this. We've got investment groups also excited about this, and they see the potential here. The first really proper UTXO programmable layer on Bitcoin. Yes, as Sheldon said, there are lots of initiatives in the Bitcoin space where they're extending some, or they're promising to extend some functionality around Bitcoin, but abstracting that layer and making sure that there is a way to build solutions on top. We can take some of the learnings from the Ethereum space and EVM space and Solana space, and we can apply that into this layer that gives all of the functionality that's been built over the last 6 or 7 years across into the Bitcoin space, without Bitcoin having to be dragged across into the Ethereum space to utilize those functions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fundamentally as well is when institutions look at this and they're sort of dipping their toe in the water, you've got a big excitement at the moment around Bitcoin treasuries.
Yeah.
And companies that are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, copying the Michael Saylor strategy model, or you've got Jack Mellors as well talking about his 21 Capital, and all these companies out there. And now you've got in the UK specifically a big kind of gold rush going on around Bitcoin treasury companies with lots of copycats. There's going to be a significant amount of companies holding Bitcoin on their treasury. Do they just want to hold it there, or do they want to actually, in a safe way, they could do non-custodial staking, which means they still hold control of the asset, but they stake and generate yield on top of the asset and receive Bitcoin back. This would be a way for them to earn interest on their Bitcoin. And this is something that, fundamentally is going to, I think, change the way that people look at Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, 100%, completely agree. Sheldon, you recently published the roadmap for Sundial. What are some of the big technical or adoption milestones the community should be keeping an eye out for over the coming months?
Yes, yeah. So the roadmap is out there in the wilds. Like all roadmaps, it's susceptible to shifts. So I wouldn't hold it as word of God that it is written in stone anywhere. But we're very happy with the progress we've been making so far, and there's some of the more pressing and interesting developments that will come out that will be of interest to the wider community is around demoing some of the additional features and functionality that we plan to have Sundial roll out with when it comes to first testnet and then mainnet. So want to first demo some of the transactions, showcase some of the security. We've got some really wonderful security partners, institutional security partners that will be stepping up to the plate with us. We think will make some waves. And then beginning to showcase how the nodes are going to be operating and putting Bitcoin to work, as Rob was mentioning, for yield generation on their Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. So we get to utilize some of the best that has been working on the EUTXO side of things using Ouroboros with Cardano to showcase non-custodial staking. So it's going to be very interesting. And then, of course, near the end of this year, in the next couple of months, I would say at this point, getting into a testnet, and it'll be a two-step testnet where we first just completely dummy everything to allow people to get in there and just break as much as they possibly can. And once we're kind of confident with that, then proceeding to an incentivized testnet where we can begin to first put some real money into the system and see how it works. Or I shouldn't say money, but Bitcoin, and to start to begin to put their Bitcoin to work in pretty interesting ways. So those are some of the most immediate kind of roadmap steps we're taking. But yeah, looking at ideally a situation where come Q1 of next year, we're off to the races with mainnet.
Exciting. Very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how the next sort of 6 to 12 months pan out. There's obviously a lot of attention on modular blockchains and Bitcoin innovation right now. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about building on Bitcoin?
Go ahead.
Oh, I guess it's a question for both of us, I would dare say, because I think Bob has gotten quite a lot of experience working with various protocols that have been coming at this from their own approach. And I would say, in my own experiences over these last couple of years, there's perceptions that either Bitcoin is archaic, that it's like an outdated chain. You do have those statements that pop up every now and then where people are saying, "Oh, we're going to eat Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to get like trampled on by XYZ new chain." I think at this point, it's become pretty clear that these are some outrageous statements that just won't stand up to reality. There is some truth to the fact that maybe Bitcoin isn't as cutting edge as it once was. Now, 15 years ago or so, a little bit more than that, it's been around for a while, and some of the earlier kind of approaches that Adam Beck had kind of pioneered, it's been around for some time, and so the technology has, of course, evolved, but it's gotten so much traction. It is now so disruptive of even existing traditional financial structures that even though it might not be as cutting edge as some of these other like new layer ones, it is still so much more advanced than traditional finance that is what we've got to focus in on. The next new shiniest thing isn't always going to move the needle. You've got to kind of realize that Bitcoin, for all that it's worth, it's still in its early days for what it can do to transform just how the globe kind of approaches finance and stores of value.
Yeah.
So that is my whole take.
What's your thoughts on that as well, Rob?
Yeah, so I just think this, as I said, I don't want to reiterate it, but the way that the traction that Sheldon's getting, the way that this project is going, I do think is just so fundamental. And what we're seeing with the market changing, the institutions changing their attitude towards the space. When you've got other innovation that is going on around the Bitcoin space that you're alluding to, I think we want to partner with that as much as we can, rather than maybe see that as just a full competition. We should partner. There is, as I say, innovation being built. There has been some problems with adoption, I would say, because of maybe the approach, and that's why I think Sundial is a fundamentally different approach, where we're building. We see Sundial as a fully programmatic layer on Bitcoin, and with the full compatibility of Bitcoin, abstracting all of the programmatic layers onto Sundial, not keep trying to squish it down into Bitcoin or push it across to a sidechain. So this is what's fundamentally different about Sundial, and that's why we really like the approach. We're taking some of the best code from the EUTX area, extending that in. We've got full state channel support, so we, as Sheldon was saying, we can get into the Lightning Network, which is a really exciting space. There is a lot of innovation going on there in terms of the micropayments areas, and with Nostr and social media and other types of things that are happening in the Bitcoin space. There's a big support of the big community there, and we've been fortunate enough to speak to some of the big players in the Nostr and Lightning space at the Bitcoin conferences we've been to, and they're very excited about what we're doing with Sundial, bringing that lending layer into Bitcoin, but also bringing some facilities and extensions to Lightning is another fundamental thing that people really don't understand in terms of what we're doing. And until you really sit down and explain how this all works, people and technical people start to really understand it. What we've got to do, the challenge we've got to do, is make sure that it's also of a language that non-technical people also understand the impact that Sundial can have.
Yeah, absolutely. You've obviously seen multiple waves of innovation, Rob, in the space. Where do you specifically see Sundial fitting into the broader Web3 narrative over the next sort of 12 to 18 months?
Well, so 12 to 18 months, we'll definitely be on mainnet. So there'll be a load of projects and partnerships that already have guaranteed that they will run on Sundial, already working on Sundial. We will have significant amount of Bitcoin staking, we hope, Bitcoin products and services built on Sundial that will be utilized by institutions and investment groups and others that have family offices and other sovereign wealths and treasury companies that have Bitcoin that want to do certain things with that Bitcoin, they can do that. So when it comes to where it's positioned in the space, Sundial, I believe, will be seen as this solid, secure, safe, programmable layer that sits on top of Bitcoin, but extending out into other UTXOs initially with really interesting stablecoin as well. Stablecoins natively running on. That's another side project we have running at the moment to bring stablecoins onto Sundial. So when if you wanted to say collateralize your Bitcoin and receive a stablecoin to be able to operate in the traditional ecosystem, you can do that. So yeah, where it will sit, as I think it'll sit as a very important key component, well understood by the Bitcoin community, well understood by institutions, and seen as a safe place to build and also interact and use your Bitcoin in a way that you can't do other than just trying to safely custody it and as a Bitcoin holder.
Yeah. Speaking of building, Sheldon, what kind of developers or projects are you hoping to attract to build on Sundial? And, what's the best way for teams to start getting involved?
Yes, yeah. Well, so right now we're having some great conversations that are early conversations around getting institutions to come over and dabble in Bitcoin in ways that they've not historically done so far. So that is one of the major focuses that we have to begin to explore together with these institutions to showcase what can be done through blockchain, through Sundial, to empower themselves to kind of get the most out of Bitcoin going forward. Because as Rob was mentioning just previously about kind of like the next phases where it all kind of fits together. It's been mentioned before, but it's worth saying again that basically for a lot of traditional companies, they're going to need to adapt to the new reality that you've got to have a Bitcoin plus AI strategy, or you're just not going to survive these next 10, 20 years. It's going to be an essential part of many businesses. And so we want to be able to be there to do education, to work, as Rob was saying before, to put the groundwork in, to hold some hands, to raise some awareness around Bitcoin and what it can do together with various AI strategies to radically transform how businesses conduct themselves and where they find value going forward. For additional developers, of course, we get to tap into all of the wonderful work that's been done over, as Rob was saying, these last 7 years in the EUTXO space. Wonderful teams with Doge, Bitcoin, Cardano, Litecoin, and so many others. And so working with the existing builders, these communities and these teams, and getting them over and seeing what they can do to get their hands dirty to kind of build out collaboratively together what Sundial can offer is the next kind of focus for us. As I was mentioning, we're still a few weeks away from getting to testnet, but one of the main focuses with the approach to getting to testnet is working with our partners and the internal team to showcase all of the various developer tool sets that will allow people to begin to deploy immediately once we go live with testnet. So we're quite excited that we think that there'll be a fairly thriving ecosystem from the get-go. Thriving, modestly thriving, but still thriving nonetheless. And so that's what I'm kind of most excited about for what we can do with these developers going forward. We'll have a developer-focused Discord up and operational probably by the time that this particular recording goes out live. So those of you who are kind of listening in would like to kind of explore building on Sundial, do kind of look us up on socials and kind of reach out, and you'll be able to find pretty soon some of the early tool sets to be able to engage with Sundial.
Amazing. And just to finish up there as well, Rob, what also excites you most about where Sundial is headed by the end of this year?
Well, by the end of this year, I really hope that we've got a lot of the big fundamentals of the technology built out and the partnerships all in place. By the end of this year, as Sheldon was saying, we should have developers already testing and breaking, and we will have a lot of the security layers also built in and security tested. We're partnering with security companies as well as security tools and other types of solutions that will really secure the network and give it a big rubber stamp that institutions can use it, institutions can come. So yeah, by the end of this year, I really hope we have a much bigger project, well-known project, but fundamentally a lot of the tech built out.
Amazing. Thank you, Sheldon and Rob, for joining us today, and sharing a glimpse into the future of Sundial Protocol and also the partnership with Uphold. Appreciate your time. If you're interested in modular Bitcoin innovation, cross-chain composability, and where the next evolution of Bitcoin infrastructure is headed, this is definitely a project to watch. For more insights and episodes just like this, don't forget to subscribe to Web3 Insights on YouTube and Spotify. You can also find us on LinkedIn as well. And if you're building in this space and want to share your story, do reach out. Would love to hear from you. Other than that, thank you both so much, and until next time.
Thanks, Aaron. All the best.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Looking forward to next time.